What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Decoded. It is May 1st, 2025, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, well, 3:10, and the market's still open, but it doesn't matter because we get done at 12 o'clock with most of us making all the money we need to make to pay our bills, which is a beautiful thing. With that said, before we get started, you guys consider buying my book. It's a beautiful book, the greatest book you'll ever see. I'm just kidding. It is a great book that pays very close attention. It's specifically about price action and how to use it to make better trading decisions. So pick that up. You can get it on Amazon. The links are down below. If you'd like to join our Discord community, well, the link is always down below these videos. It's free, and you don't have to do anything other than join the Discord server. That's it. You don't have to put any credit card information in. You don't have to sign up on a website. There's nothing you have to do. Just get in. It gives you the access if it's your first time there for 1 week. After 1 week, it automatically ends. And if you want to continue it, you can then become a paying member. Otherwise, thank you for stopping by. Now, with that said, today was a pretty good day. I'm going to show you guys the charts. I'm not going to waste your time. Let's go ahead and get into it. And right out of the gate, we had a call put scenario, as we always do. Now, you can't see it because the top of that red box is in the way, but our call line was above 484.07, which is the top of that box. And we were hoping that it was actually going to make its way all the way up to almost this orange line here, just shy of it, the most recent lower high, or high to the left, which would have been here. But as luck would have it, ADD started to drop very quickly at the open. SPY put a big wick on top of its opening candle. Qs hit a resistance up there, put a big wick on top. I told everybody, guys, this is looking better to the downside than to the upside. We did crack and close below our put line, which was 483.22. I told everybody I'd be looking for this thing to hopefully move down to at least the first orange line, but I'd really like to see it get down to 482.14. We had an alert down there. Once that thing got hit, we went ahead and got out. Now, I got out a hair before we hit that level. The very next one is one we always consider getting out of as well, simply because, well, Qs and SPY were hitting support at the same time. Very easy concept to understand, very hard to execute if you're not willing to take profits. These call put scenario guys are not intended to be long home run type trades. Sometimes they turn into home runs, sometimes they lose, but at the end of the day, they're meant to be quick, aggressive, short trades. Now, we have somebody in our community that is exclusively trading these trades and is keeping track of his win-loss ratio. 70 out of 74%, or 70 out of 74 times he's taken the call put scenarios, he's won. Okay, that's a pretty high success rate, if you ask me. I think it's close to 94%, 95% win rate, but that's impossible. Don't believe that. With that said, we got in, we got out, we got our profits. For me, that was about a 19.5% win, and that's good enough for me, personally. We hit support, we come in, we put in a lower high. Now, with that said, we expect with the lower high that we are likely to break support. The problem is, and the reason we weren't getting into puts here is why. We'll take a look at ADD. ADD had already started to reverse and print big green candles. You don't want to be aggressive on your trades if ADD is aggressively going in the other direction, okay? So this was a do-nothing situation. We hit resistance here again. Now, I do have people wanting to play puts here. Understandably, my problem is that ADD is still looking stronger at this moment than it is weaker. So I would not have bought a put here, and that's why there is no arrow there. We did have people play puts here. It's a resistance on the Qs, it's a resistance on SPY, and it did come down, and it did ultimately break support, and it did get down to the next support. SPY did not, but it hit the same support. But either way, if SPY and Qs are on support at the same time, always worth considering taking profits. So for those of you who took that trade, good for you. I'm glad you made money. I did not. In fact, I wasn't looking to do anything. Now, once we got all the way back up to here, which was identified as a very strong level of resistance in pre-market, I told everybody up here, I said, well, now we are at resistance, strong resistance areas on both charts. And my counter trend traders, once we break this trend line, if we can crack through this support, our next support down is all the way over here. We were talking about this trade at 9:51. You just had to be patient enough to wait for a little bit of weakness start to show, which in this case was a wick on top of our ADD green candle. It did start to print red on the very next candle. So whether you got in here or you got in here because we broke the trend line, we broke support, and we had room to go down to the next support, which was right here. Now, before this trade happened, I told everybody, guys, this is a strong resistance. If we can crack the upward trend that we're on and break this support, we should end up somewhere between these two orange lines right here, was my exact words. We got to those two orange lines and a little bit past. Now, we don't like to hold our trades past or through 10 o'clock. Why? Well, today was a perfect example as why we don't hold on to trades through 10 o'clock. We had reports dropping, and it's always a huge volume candle. Don't get yourself in trouble and get caught up in this, because I said it when it happened. I said, I would take my profits here. We're too close to 10 o'clock. If you're going to hold on, please put a stop loss in place. Hope it doesn't get skipped over. But nonetheless, it's a gamble candle. Take your money while it's there, because you don't know which way that 10 o'clock candle is going to go. With that said, anybody who was holding puts during the printing of this green candle, I bet you, you instantly became a hold and hoper. No doubt. And then you didn't get a chance to get out of that trade with profit after that. Didn't happen. You don't want to get yourself caught up in that situation, guys. Hopefully you got out at the opportunity you had when we did move back down. But I know for a fact, because I've done it, you get stuck in a situation like this and it goes the wrong way, you get yourself in trouble. Okay? Now, we put in a higher low. Higher lows are bad for puts. Because of the higher lows, we have to assume we're going to break resistance. We did. We got through the resistance. We came back down, retested kind of support. It's kind of support right here. Now, people were saying, Jimmy, when would you buy calls? Me personally, because of the shenanigans that took place between the area of support down here in the red box, I personally said I wouldn't feel comfortable taking calls until we got above the red box. Okay. Now, the higher low here, if you didn't have feelings involved, which I admit I did, I didn't like what I saw leading up to this point, and I wouldn't have had the confidence to take the trade. And that's okay. I'm already up money on the day. I don't need to push the boundaries for myself, right? If you're good and green on the day already, there's no reason to take unnecessary additional risk. You can, and most of the time it doesn't work out because emotions from the first trade play a role in your second trade. But nonetheless, I did have people wanting to get into calls because of higher lows and a close above resistance. That ended up being an excellent opportunity to get into a trade. We don't know it. Hindsight's 20/20, but nonetheless, congrats to you out there who ignored or didn't let feelings take over your trade decision and you played the technicals. Higher lows are bad for puts, so we're not looking to go short here. And if we can clear resistance, we should move up to the next resistance, which in this case was the red block. So no arrow here because I wouldn't have. I don't put these arrows at places that I didn't say or wouldn't take trades myself. And that's that. So again, kudos to you who played it. We move up. We do close above the red box. Now, if you've been watching my channel for long enough, you know I've always said, and I will continue to say, buying breakouts is always more risky than buying pullbacks. Okay? And that is the case. Today was a perfect example. And because we attempt to play breakouts, I did not trade this. I didn't trade any more for the rest of the day. Was a break of resistance. It was the call line. We were hoping to get up to the next line, the level I told you guys at the beginning of the video. Breakouts, when we have breakouts, we must have a tighter stop. So if we're breaking through a resistance, I always tell the folks to make that same resistance your stop loss if we close back below it. And the reason is, and in this case, wasn't much of a pullback that we were expecting. The reason is if we close below that support, we expect to pull back to the next support. Now, I identified that support to everybody as 483.54 or 55 right here. Okay. Now, as luck would have it, that was a great pullback, a pullback to support. Okay. Now we're hoping that becomes a higher low, and the second opportunity to take the call line became a much better one because of the higher low. So if you respected the entry and exit that I try to teach, being aggressive on your entries, you want to be aggressive on your stops, but the next stop down or the next level of support below that resistance was only right here. So we did have some folks buy in here. They held there. They were going to stop out if we closed below that 483.56 line, because then we would expect it to move further down to the blue line, the pre-market low line of the Qs. It didn't happen. We also had people get into the trade here after it was a higher low. Nonetheless, I kept trying to tell everybody where the next levels up are. If you don't trust the lines, well, trust previous levels of resistance to your left. So the last one we had from pre-market is right here, which is why that first exit suggestion is right there where we touched it. We put in another higher low. That means we're more likely to head up to the next resistance. We did. Higher lows continued, and you could ride this all the way up until you feel like you don't want to make more money, or when you feel like it's starting to pull back. Now, this candle here was aggressive. That would have been enough to get me out of this trade had I held or been in this whole time. At some point, guys, greed becomes a factor you have to be concerned with, okay? It's not about being afraid. It's just about, at some point, the move is going to stop. We just don't know exactly when that is. Now, as we got up to this level here, Qs and SPY were nearing a level of resistance. SPY obviously hit this level and never saw it again, I don't think, for the rest of the day. It rejected pretty hard. Now, would I be looking for puts just because we're pulling back? No. I said, in fact, we should be expecting this thing to pull back to at least this line of support. If it gets through it, the next one down is right here. I said, what I would like to see is not only a break of support, but a lower high would be ideal, and I'd love to see ADD printing red. This ended up being the cleanest trade of the day, and I loved it because it was long after I was done, but it was right before I was getting off the mic, and it was a great trade setup. I walked everybody through it. We explained the whole scenario well before it became a trade. Sorry, I just unlocked my camera. We put in the lower high. I said, everybody, at 11:27, I said, this is setting up to be a lower high. We won't know until the next candle closes. I said, the next candle's closing, but here's the beauty of this particular trade. This is all systems go. This is one of those setups where you can't argue, or you shouldn't, especially if you're prepared or trade my style. Lower highs, we're likely to break support. Where's the next support? It's all the way down here, which was a 50-cent move, what we were looking for. If we got through that, we were looking for another 40 or 50-cent move from there, and then below that was another 40-cent. Nonetheless, the reason we got into this trade was because lower highs on both charts, and guess what? ADD had started to front run before this thing started to pull back for our entry point. ADD already started printing red 3 candles before. This ended up being a fantastic entry for puts, and thankfully, a ton of people took them. Kudos to you guys. We made it all the way down to our support level. Had somebody held on, you know who you are, Lynette. We pulled back. I said, we got to stay below the previous lower high, but we hope ADD resumes its red candle printing. We hope this turns into a lower high. We started to ask Steve for a favor, which is why this alert was here, because she wanted to get out in profit because she had held and turned herself a little bit red. Steve did us a solid, got us down to our support level. This was the second obligation or consideration for profits. Both charts on a support level at the same time, but ADD was still printing red. And I said right here at this moment, I actually said the candle before, I said, guys, this is one of those times where I would choose to hold my trade longer because everything else, especially ADD, is looking really good, like there's a potential continuation move in this one. So I would hold on to it. We want to stay below the most recent support, okay, that we created, which was over here. We never came close to it. Hopefully this turns into a lower high. It did. So we legged down. So people who were waiting to get into a trade got in here because of the lower high and ADD was printing red. Other people were holding on to their existing trades. This turned into a massive, massive winning trade. 55% for some folks. Some people got in a little late. It was a 40% win. Some people got in earlier, and it was a lot more than 55%. Guys, we're not looking for home runs in these trades. But however, if we get into a trade because it was a good setup, they can turn into home runs, right? I'm not asking you to aim for the bleachers every time you take a swing. I'm suggesting that you know when to swing first, and then if it ends up turning into a home run, it's just icing on the cake. We're trying to find confluence. We want to have reasons for why we stay in these trades and get into these trades, not because of our feelings, right? It's because the chart tells us we should. Now, the last trade that we talked about, it was literally right before I got off the mic. I said, guys, this is a higher low. Certainly don't buy puts here. We're more likely to break that resistance and head up. Where to? Well, I was hoping the blue line up here, ADD was still aggressively moving down on this candle, but then started to print a little bit of green. Nonetheless, opportunity to get in, scalp a move if you're into that kind of thing. There was no resistance there, so it did fall short. So our rule is if we get through above a line and we close back below it, you got to stop out. So you either got in, squeezed out some profit. SPY did hit a resistance up here, or you got out because we closed below support. Whatever the case was, that was the last trade we talked about today because, well, I get off the microphone at 12 o'clock. And ever since then, it did provide a couple of moves, but now we're more sideways trading than anything. So we like to call that a take your money chart. With that said, guys, I'm trying to shorten these up. I'm trying to spit all the information that I use to make money in the markets and how I teach other people to do it. The book is a good way to learn it if you can't be in our Discord community. Otherwise, get a combination between the book and listening to me live. It's very hard to teach this stuff without real life situations going on. But at the same time, it's stressful, especially as a new trader or somebody who doesn't trade the way that we do. It's very stressful to do it in real time. So the book becomes a huge benefit for you in that situation. Once you've read the book, or in conjunction with reading the book, listening and watching, don't do any trading, listen and watch. See if the information that we share in there is useful. I think you'll come to find that it is very helpful to know. With that said, we're going to wrap it up. Hope you found some useful information in this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to join our Discord community, as I said before, there are links down below. We'd love to have you. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Till tomorrow. I love you guys. See you.